It's my pleasure to be able to announce today this is the first of 5 interviews arriving on this YouTube channel, all of which are related to new Path of Exile 2 interviews. They will be sprinkled throughout with information you would not have known otherwise, that are behind the scenes information from people that we have not seen in front of the camera before. There's also sprinkled throughout a little bit of teasers related to the new 0.3 upcoming league. So if you keep your ears peeled and you watch these, you might get a little bit of stuff that you can run wild with some speculation on.
There is a boss upcoming, actually. I'm not sure if I can talk about it or not.
So without further ado, it's my pleasure to be able to introduce today Kamil, the music director for Path of Exile 1 and 2, and one of my favorite people I got a chance to talk to down there in New Zealand. Enjoy. All right, Kamil, you said you've been here for 13 years.
Yes.
Can I hear the story about how you started?
I was part of the outsourced company, and I remember Eric, one of the co-founders. Basically, he was searching for some assets, and there was a few pieces of music there. He asked me to make a test track, and that was the whole thing. The whole interview, basically. There was no interview, and after that, I just started straight away working. Back then, that was end of Act 3. Like Imperial Gardens, places like this.
Sure.
And yeah, it became like a full work, but remotely at first, finishing Act 4 back then.
Did they already have some music created for you to go off like as a baseline, or was it pretty much like here's what we've created, but we don't have any starting point?
There was a bit of a split. Okay, this is music which already exists.
Okay.
But it's kind of like start over. Obviously, all those pieces which were there were like some sort of like direction when it comes to pace, because our roots are connected with the Diablo 2 as one of our favorite games. I would say that was one of the like references.
One of the primary sources you drew inspiration from in Diablo 2.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you took inspiration from?
Oh, there's plenty of things. It's like a lot of in when it comes to video game soundtracks, movies, TV shows. I would say from TV shows, I love music for Game of Thrones. I think it has some impact. You have different genres, artists. You have 9 Inch Nails.
Okay.
You have a lot of things which by the way, Trent Reznor created a lot of music for pictures, and I would say even that is more of a reference than 9 Inch Nails music itself. So I'm big fan of everything what Hans Zimmer did so far. And there's plenty of video game composers, like Jasper Kidd, when it comes to Assassin's Creed, especially early Assassin's Creed games, Unreal Tournament,
Oh yeah, the Unreal Tournament 1999.
Yeah,
played that one.
Yeah, this one, yes.
Yeah, that's classic.
So I could like, Baldur's Gate. I love Baldur's Gate, and then you think about what was the actual inspiration for Baldur's Gate music, like Conan, basically. You know? So every time I have a question about inspiration, it's like after I got this question, I think, oh my God, of course I could mention this, because there's so many.
When I asked you earlier when we were off camera, you mentioned that there was modern inspirations too, and you talked about Expedition 33, for instance.
Yeah.
And so my question for you would be, as time has gone from like earlier production, you said you listened to the Super Metroid OST recently, right?
Yes.
And so as hardware has continued to develop, do you find that having more hardware has opened up so many options that the ceiling of music you can produce has gotten like significantly higher? Or do you think that staying within the confines of the original difficulty, if you only have certain ways to make music in and of itself, made the art like almost superior in some ways? Like how have you found the shift in hardware has predicated how music has shaped going into more modern music?
It's a very interesting and question which, like, I can think about many like aspects of that. Like one thing which I noticed, which is very effective when it comes to creating something decent, is like actually limiting yourself, and but you get to that limitation by firstly having a very large pool of options, tools, samples, instruments. But you said that hardware, like evolution of hardware, I would say software is a little bit more like something which keeps evolving. While hardware, it's something which these days for musicians, composers, it's more like how I'm gonna add that extra soul, and both, like synthesizers, but also having live instruments. So and back then everything was very simple. So the melodies were the most important. Like when you said Metroid, Castlevania, everything like that, you had a very simple sound and almost the same sound, but you had different melodies, different chord progressions, and you really had to focus on that aspect. While today you have so much freedom, like I would say horizontally and vertically, like everything. It's like the vast options with creating new sounds, like completely brand new sounds, more interesting themes, orchestration, big ensemble, 100-piece choirs. Like there's so much stuff which you can use. Then you take that and you process this to the point that it's like you can barely recognize what was the source, but it sounds even more interesting. So I would say the amount of options these days can be almost like crippling because what shall I use?
Paralysis by analysis in a way.
Yeah. So it's very important to be able to like reduce, like narrow down options quickly. That's like a big part of the job, in my opinion.
How often when you're creating a piece, do you find yourself having to go outside of your department and get opinions or concept art that influences the piece you're creating?
Fairly often, like especially with the concept art. That's something which is like, if there's a luxury that you can start with the concept art, because many times these days there's like existing area, existing boss. There's so many of them that there's no need to wait. But it's always like really cool part, like getting idea from, let's say, concept artist. What was the idea behind this one, and just start working. Like you see the picture, you start sketching something, and that's like the most exciting part.
How often are you thinking about the feeling that the person is supposed to receive? Like, I'll give you an idea, for instance. So I was talking to Stephen earlier about layouts, and he would say that he has to be careful because if he does too many of a certain type of layout in a row, the person who's playing through the game is going to receive a level of fatigue, too stressful for too long, 2 periods of times. So do you find yourself, like, having to think through from the player, period, we just did track 1 and then track 2 and track 3. Do you find yourself having to like relieve the player's emotions very often with not having too hammering of a music quite often? Or how often are you thinking about the feelings that the player's having to feel by receiving the music?
I would say the more I work like throughout the years, the more important it is. Like at the very beginning, it was like for everyone, in the way smaller team, it was like we want to do something so cool, and these days it's like you want to do something cool, but you want to make sure that the experience is right for a specific part of the game. So going with the simple 3 types of track concept, where you have town track, you have area track, and you have boss track, you have a very different approach to each of them. Especially for area tracks, this is something which you don't want anything which could be annoying for after, let's say, you hear this one 5 times in a row because for some reason you're stuck in the specific area. Then it's very important that everything can be actually like nice to listen for a long time. For town music, you want something memorable. You want something which it will be even more pleasant because you want that for area track you want something which is has that hostile feeling.
Yeah.
But it's not yet overwhelming and menacing. For town music you want the peace, and then you have a boss fights where you just want to make sure that adrenaline will be there. It's like you basically have both themes and percussion and like everything in the music basically tells you that you're in deep trouble. Like it has to just go together with what you see.
Do you find boss fights to be more important to see further in development cycle to be able to accurately portray the music? Do you need to see more of the mechanics in order to get the boss fight music just right?
Boss fights are most complex in this case. If you have a multi-phase boss fight, you have transitions, you have some nice introduction, which is supposed to like set the mood. Many times in the second phase, you have a piece which is more intensive, so you have that like the feeling that you're progressing in some way.
When you have a boss fight that's at the end of an area,
Yeah.
do you very often like try to fit themes that happened previously to the area into it? Like I asked the same question to the level design guys, like, hey, are you you building up the level, and then at the end are you doing the same thing on the music side of it, where you try to kind of leave little hints in as to what the boss fight music might actually end up being?
Like the themes, that's something like I could talk about themes forever. I love the idea where you have the boss fight and then you can hear that theme being foreshadowed. You want to make sure that players are accustomed with specific theme so they can connect everything,
Yep.
And you have this on micro level and on the macro level. You hear some snippets, some maybe 1 or 2 notes, or you hear just a signature sound.
So you're working backwards typically is what it sounds like, kind of you do the boss side of it first.
It's part of the palette for the act, for the toolkit, for specific instruments. The theme is a part of that. Sometimes few themes, and many times they have some connection. Let's say they are in the same scale, same key, but they're slightly different. Or they could like antagonize, they could be, like yin yang sometimes,
Do you have a favorite theme from Path of Exile 2 so far that you've created?
I do like Count Gionor in terms of like the theme and how the theme progressed throughout the piece, and what you can hear when it comes to that theme throughout the act. There will be one more town piece, small piece, which actually has a little bit of snippet of that Count Gionor's theme. So I just like this specific one.
I'm curious about you. We were talking earlier, and I told you my favorite music currently in PoE2 is the Trials music, or you were calling it the Ascendancy, music. So can you tell me the story about writing that piece in particular, and how you kind of came to the conclusion that it should sound like it does?
You asked me about the favorite piece from PoE2, but actually I would say Exile and Ascendancy probably from PoE1. Yeah, some people think that theme is it's like Isaro's theme, but it's actually Ascendancy theme. And when I started working on PoE2, specifically Ascendancy, I knew I want to like have that theme in some way. And because we have different cultures, Sakema, we have Val, and one more. It's very interesting to use that theme, but in a different way. The melody goes slightly different. You have a different chord progression. You have completely different instruments, but it's still the core is there. The theme is there. So just getting a bit of that nostalgic feeling out of this, but in the same time having like a completely fresh perspective.
Should we expect to hear kind of the same theme when the third trial eventually comes to the game too? Then
yes,
with its own little twist.
Yes. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, this is the Ascendancy theme, and unless there will be like PoE3, PoE4 or something, or with the new Ascendancy, maybe then it could have like a different approach. But for PoE2 specifically, Ascendancy, that's the Ascendancy theme. It's a part of experience to have that familiarity with this theme.
How often are you importing? Local talent. Like I saw during one of the, I forget which interviews it was, or if it might have been the Kane interview, but they were showing that you had like a choir there, singing as well. You had some vocalists there as well. So do you guys bring in outside talent, for one-offs fairly often?
It happens more often now. Like for instance, for violin, for King's March, Nick Jones, our violin guy. We recorded quite a few tracks. In Act 1, you can hear a lot of his violin, and it's like we have 2 spaces for recording. Here's one for interviews, but also for lately we recorded some wind instruments, and some other things. And upstairs we have a small booth for voiceovers, but also we recorded quite a few instruments there as well.
You mentioned violin. So I know this violin, I believe cello is used quite often throughout the PoE2, I guess particularly Act 1, and then in Act 2 you start doing pluck strings, etc. So how intentional is the instrument choice when it comes to the individual acts? Are you using that sort of like a tying theme together? Because you talk about melodies and themes sort of tying together as well, but it also seems like the instruments in a way are tying the acts together too. Instruments
are, to me, almost as important in this case as a toolkit. It's like the first thing you have a new act. So you think about all lore-related things and environment and what culture could works well, and if there's any connection with anything what was done in the past for PoE as well. Based on all of those things, you get some palette of instruments. Like I think, let's use Val as an example. So you have a bit of a influence from Aztec, Mayans, and you can think about all woodwind instruments, like ethnic instruments, and some interesting like percussion as well. And you use this as one part of the signature, how you identify that culture musically. And then you think what is like a big part of the PoE music as well. You want something which kind of like connect PoE music in general. And PoE music is quite hybrid in terms of like what instruments you use. So you have a full symphonic orchestra, you have a lot of ethnic instruments, but then you have synthesizers, and you have everything in between. The best part is actually everything in between, which is like acoustic instruments processed to the point that they don't sound like something actually existing. They sound bigger than life. They have some distortion. They have some extra layer of synth underneath. You take inspiration from different cultures, but then you add a lot of things and create that identity by merging, processing, and it's like all comes together. It's very like specific for specific act, for specific process. So symphonies, you're talking about symphonies and orchestras, and a lot of Act 1 in particular seems to have a lot of inspiration, should I say, from symphony. It sounds very symphony-esque. Is that fairly intentional, or are you really trying to go for that full orchestra vibe? Yeah, I mean, it's like symphony is kind of like a backbone of the majority of music for PoE. Act 1 could have a little bit more of that. It's like you have that gothic kind of orchestra, choir, pipe organs vibes. The symphony has a big role to have all those elements coming together, and it's easy way to like making something melodic and grand, I would say. So for the upcoming content 0.3 here, should we expect sort of more of kind of similar vibes to what we've already heard, or are you going to be going with something a little bit different? It's going to be different. Okay. Yeah. No, yeah. I think like every single act, and also like when you have expansions or like leagues, it's all have like specific themes. They might have something in common, but there always have to be something which is like unique to give you the idea straight away. Okay, that's expansion. That's the culture, Val or Market, and you get like palette of those instruments. When we were talking earlier, you mentioned that PoE2 does have like a base concept. You kind of came back for, right? I mentioned Killer Instinct. When Mick Gordon did Killer Instinct, the baseline concept they went for him was badass. So what in particular is the baseline concept for Path of Exile 2's music? Oh yeah. As we spoke about those keywords, because the badass is like a perfect example of keywords, which I love to use keywords because it's like the fastest way to like write brief. Whether I write brief for myself or I write a brief for Michael, it's always like you have those keywords first. It can be like solemn, badass, or anything like that, which quickly identify what kind of mood you want to achieve. If you ask me about the whole game, let's use some keywords. I would say badass would be there as well.
Okay.
Because I love to have a badass boss fights.
How about a teaser for the new upcoming boss fights? Then we don't have to go into detail, but what do you have a teaser keyword there?
Okay. Tribal.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the one for sure. Badass will be there for sure. I would say even some simple, some not really specific words like serious. Like something that's very serious. Because some boss fights could be a little bit quirky.
Sure. Yeah.
And some of them actually could be quirky from upcoming stuff to the certain point. But I would say tribal for sure. But also there's a bit of a menacing, like overwhelming, terrifying. Yes.
Okay, that's some good hints.
Yeah, and if you have enough of those keywords, you actually have idea that it's not any generic boss fight. It's something more specific, even though every single of those keywords could be used for pretty much every boss fight.
Do you have a person you lean on when you're developing one of these new boss fights? You have a guy you're like, I'm trying to go for this thing. Like, what do you think about it? You got someone that's kind of your sounding board over in the department.
It really depends on the situation.
Sure.
The most of the time, it's like when I have my small music department, it's like we send each other tracks to get some feedback, especially when it comes to technical stuff. It's like when you make your own music. You are the least objective person when it comes to mix. Like specifically mixing how it sounds. It's even if you have proper settings developed, template, you know what you're doing, you still want to get some idea whether does it sound good?
You have to kind of knock yourself out of you go back to I really like this style, and you kind of find yourself going back to what you like to do, and you have to have other people kind of knock you out of doing the same thing. Do you find that too often, or are you pretty good about being able to vastly change the style of music you're doing on a dime?
There's always I would tell you this, if you have doubts, then most likely you should get feedback. And in general, it's good to get feedback anyway, because many times you have a list of things which you think are wrong, and the feedback, if you see something like matching something from your list, then almost certainly you need to do something with that.
So you talked about I asked you the question about seeing the concept beforehand, or the bosses, etc., and being able to see at least something developed. So how does time constraints end up affecting the music, production? How does it ever impede progress of being creative when you're on a certain time constraint? Is that ever a portion of pressure for you?
Well, I think that's extremely common in video game development, and because it's hard to avoid that. So any very creative stuff like writing themes, if you have one day and you need to write main theme, it's not gonna work. Sometimes maybe for some people very high pressure can help to finish a lot of content, and many times it works for me as well. But I always try to make sure that everything which is major, direction, themes, some main parts of the tracks, the climax, those things I like to start with, and then go to less important things like build up. And you also feel safer when you have most important things done.
Well, what seems relevant to that is George Lucas said that 50% of the experience is sound, but in a meeting with Lucasfilms, when he's talking to the audio guys, he also said if you can just get it, the rule of 55, if you can just get 55% of it completed, it's good enough. So when do you feel like it's good enough as opposed to a masterpiece?
You need to know when to stop. You need to know when to let go. I fully agree. 55%.
Seems low, don't it?
It seems quite low, but many times when I create piece, something which sounds for someone quite finished, it might be 55% for me, because I know how many things still has to be done. And I had situations when I was around the 55 or maybe 70, and I had to stop. over the time you develop like some sort of way of creating something safe fairly quickly, and especially the last 20% sometimes can take more time than the previous 80%. It's tricky to actually tell when you should stop, but you have to stop at a certain point.
What is that last 20% where it's not just perfect? Is it just the melody isn't hitting exactly right for you? Is that you want to throw some extra, ambiance or something? Like, what's that 20%?
I would say more technical things. Like you have everything like related to mix. You have some small elements of orchestration, maybe something which you might not hear straight away, but it's there. It's not quite right, especially if you start breaking down the piece for like stems, like small parts, tracks. You just need to stop at a certain point, and otherwise, you could be going for forever with this. It's like you can always. The thing is that you can always do something better. That's the thing. So it's the percentage is actually a very objective thing.
Does hardware help with that time? Like I go upstairs to see the audio there. It's quite nice. You guys got yourself some audio up there.
Yeah,
some hardware equipment. So
we like all those knobs, faders.
You got a lot of knobs. You got a lot of knobs.
Yeah.
Are those knobs helping a lot? Like how? Because the audio chase is a very classic meme of people saying you chasing that last low. Speaking of percentages, chasing that last low percent there. So how much does adding more and more and more hardware like improve the overall product at the end of the day?
I like a more balanced approach. I don't like too much, mostly because I feel guilty that I don't fully utilize those things. And there's like a lot of like convenience, and also like how it helps you in creative way. Like you could do a lot of things with the software using your mouse. But many times you are more creative if you just have a piece of hardware and you start like tweaking something. It's just fun, and also it feels more like it's a part of like using a instrument. It's also it's kind of like playing on instruments,
sure.
Like having additional layer of controls, and being able to do something more precisely, and not that mouse. That mouse is like the least creative thing, and actually like detaching from the desk, that's like something which is very good to get inspired.
How much of the art do you think happens on this side of the monitor as opposed to like within the software of it?
It's still mostly software these days. Just instruments like guitar. You pick up instrument, you play, you record something, but then you spend more time actually editing, processing. I'm not a guitar player, so many times what I do, I even start with the virtual instruments for guitar. I use MIDI keys to play. It sounds like it sounds. Then I try to play on guitar the same part, and then even after that, I'm like, no, it sucks. So I'll ask someone to help me with that specific thing. Gene again, to actually play that part by someone who actually can play on guitar well.
You have two people in a room. One guy plays it perfectly on hardware. One guy creates it in the software. You think it matters? Can you really tell a difference as an average user, you think?
That's a part of the job, to fake.
Yeah.
Honestly, you need to be a good composer, but you need to make a good mock-up as well. The better you can fake orchestra, the better. Because when you have very little time, you just go with this. Also, if you have a low budget, you also go with this.
Yeah.
If you have a higher budget, but you have a low time, you also have to go with this. And sometimes you're able to create something which is so convincing that there's actually no point to record this specific instrument. So yeah, I think it's a very important part. But also, it really depends what instruments.
Okay.
So these days, I would say when it comes to like big symphonic orchestra, a lot of things can be done with the software the way that's very convincing. Like I get the messages or comments on the YouTube about the choir many times.
Yeah.
What is that choir? Where did you record this choir? And the choir is pretty much always, virtual instruments.
Okay.
Except any carry stuff.
Sure.
But you have instruments like guitar. When you do strumming, and it's like all strings, they affect each other, like the sound.
Sure.
So it's just you can't get and you don't want to have something which sounds perfect.
You want a little grittiness to it.
Yeah. That human feeling, it's
The
like has
swicking of the
that
strings,
imperfections,
yeah. Sure.
So the more instrument requires those imperfections, the more important it is to either record real instrument, or I would say try to fake it the way that this instrument is underneath. That's actually something which I've been doing, hopefully quite successfully, in terms of you don't pay much attention as a listener to this specific instrument because I don't want you to pay attention. I do my best to use it somewhere underneath as a layer, specifically with electric guitar.
Speaking of electric guitar, I know there's not really a lot of what I would consider heavy, electric guitar throughout the OST, but it does show up in Jean Moran, and I think I'm probably mispronouncing this, but the theme starts to come in there. So I was curious, why did you decide to start introducing that for him? What is it about that theme in particular? We're no, we're going to go a little bit more metal on this one.
The thing about the electric guitars, it's just it's fairly easy way to add the badass factor. So whenever it's a part of the idea concept, you can use guitars, and you have some guitars for Act 1 as well. It's specifically boss fights.
Okay.
When you have some some riffs, some chugging, just to add extra layer of that's kind of like a motor, pumping. But for Act 2 specifically, I would say guitars together with the Mid-East like sounding instruments. There's a bit of an inspiration. It's not even direct inspiration, but it's definitely somewhere, on the back of my head, like Prince of Persia or something like that.
Sure, okay, yeah.
It just works well, ethnic instruments with a little bit of guitar. But it's never, as you said, there's never really heavy. There's almost never heavy metal vibe.
Yeah.
I just like to have a bit of it.
Do you find yourself having to pull back more so than you would want? How often are you allowing yourself to cut loose, really? Because even in some of the boss fights, it can be heavier, like the one we were just talking about. But, you never, you really do a good job of riding the line of being heavy and in your face, but not so much that overwhelms the actual boss fight, what's going on.
It's the same thing with the town tracks and area tracks. Every music supposed to be still quite pleasant for Ace. Even boss tracks, even if we have guitars and something more aggressive, horror, you still want to have something pleasant which you can enjoy listening for a longer time. Because if you stuck with the boss for a longer time, you want to make sure that the music is pleasant.
Well, thanks for your time, Kamil.
Thank you very much.
This was very in-depth, and I got to be honest with you, this was probably the part that I was excited about most when I got invited out. So I wanted to talk to the music guys, the audio guys, and you're a legend in this space, so I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. It was great to talk with you.